Hello and welcome to Out of This World. I'm coming to you from some undisclosed tropical location, and I'm so excited tonight because BLA based lit analyzer is joining me for the first time. He's classing up the place. We are getting better and better guests and personalities for you, and he has been doing so many great shows with David Patrick Henry, Kotel, and Rachel Wilson, and he is part of the squad. And this is our first dance together tonight. So, how are you tonight?
I'm awesome. I'm so glad to be here. I'm very excited to talk about this. This is a great topic. We're doing Peter Pan tonight. And yeah, shouts out to David Patrick Harry, Church of the Eternal Logos, all of our friends out there. It's been fun. And I think we're going to do a nice deep dive into this one. I can't wait. Your shows have been, you kill it every time.
Oh,
Yeah, especially with my friend Rachel Wilson, based homeschool mom. So shouts out to her.
yep,
Looking forward to it.
totally. So we're just getting this cool like network of podcasters and content sharers and creators and friends. And tonight we're going to talk about something crazy because I know I've been promising you this, but we've been in transition. But I have one more chapter to go in this crazy thing. And that's going to be on Rockfin, but it's all about Pan. So before we get to Peter Pan, we're going to talk a little bit about who Pan is, the hidden god. And I'm going to read you the description of Pan in the glossary from probably the most evilest book I own. I had to, one time I moved, I had to split my library and I didn't have room for everything. And so a lot of the evil books didn't make it. They got cut, but this one made the cut because it had a story behind it. But so Pan from this book uh, is Greek, literally means all, Latin, om, Sanskrit, om. So this is going to go places that you don't think because whenever you're doing yoga and you're saying om, mani padme om, this is the mantra or the god Pan, right?
Yes, there's a Beatles song also where George Harrison incorporates it. He
Oh,
says,
yeah.
Ja Guru Devla Om.
Jai Guru Dev.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Nothing's gonna change my. That
Yeah,
one.
that's right. Yes.
Okay.
And actually, you losing that book of or the box of, esoteric evil books is funny.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I moved and I lost it was a box of all the like novels, all the prose. So every time I think of a novel, I can't find it. So I
Yeah.
understand what it's like, but I still, I guess, unfortunately, I've got my Aleister Crowley books made it.
Well, it's so valuable. I mean, just that alone, it's a lot of money if you ever want to replace this one. So, but you'll hear all about that on the Rockfin show, probably out this week. But so Pan, Om, Egyptian Amun, Hebrew Amen, uh, all designations of the hidden god of the forest, the abyss, the deep, the underworld, any region withdrawn and without the range of waking consciousness. So we're already getting into the dream world, the subconscious world where Pan operates, right?
So for the folks at home, Jamie,
Uh-huh.
we've already gone, very deep, literally and figuratively, with this name. And like, this is just from the title itself, right? This is just Peter Pan. And I think it's interesting that, you know, I'm sure people will look at this and say, um, no, this has nothing to do with it, right? It's just Peter Pan, it's just alliteration or it just is a nice sounding title, but it's in the title and it's an
Yeah.
obvious name. It's an
Yeah.
obvious name. So of course I think it's apt to go into the symbolism and into the archetypes and the mythology of that.
Well, as we're gonna find out, his cult was really popping off in the Victorian era, in the Gothic era, when these art plays, books, stories, all of these things were becoming popular. And Pan is related to Nodens. And now we're going even deeper into the abyss because he would be like a Lovecraftian type, like an elder god, like a Cthulhu. So Nodin's the god of the deep or abyss, and according to Lovecraft, the only named elder god, this deity survived into Roman times and was worshipped in the islands at the earthly power zone or chakra situated at Lydney and Gloucestershire. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire. Okay, so Nodens is gonna pop back up. Pan is gonna like the psyche in Peter Pan when we talk about Jan Barry and Peter Pan, and then we're going to talk about next week The Great God Pan, a Victorian novella by Arthur Machen, who is admired by occultists H.P. Lovecraft and Kenneth Grant and other occult writers. So Pan, I mean, that's literally chaos, right? It was where we get the word pandemic. We get the word
Panic.
panic, pandemonium, you know. So what have we been going through the last 3 years but a ritual, a pandemic, right?
Pander.
Pander, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, the pandemonium is the most interesting one to me because when I think of pandemonium, it's a word that occurs in Paradise Lost. It's in Milton's Paradise Lost, right? Because all the devils are there. They when they gather together in book 1 of Paradise Lost, they find themselves like on the shore of a darkness, and it's so dark that the darkness is visible, and they call it pandemonium because they look out, and it's strange because immediately they look out and they see that like they're in company.
Mm-hmm.
But I never put together the pan part of pandemonium, including the reference to Pan, the god, the Roman or the pagan image. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so Pan is the bringer of violence. He's disruptive, he's beast-like, he's sexually aggressive, he's known for overturning the prevailing order of things. So he is the chaos part of Ordo Ab Chao, right? And so let's go back in time a little bit because Pan, he wasn't really a huge thing. He was sort of like an attendant to Dionysus, which Dionysus and Bacchus were very popular in Greek mythology and the mystery plays, where we get the idea of theater and acting and invocating gods into actors that influence crowds. So let's talk about mystery schools for a minute. So let's go back to ancient Greece.
So I don't know if you want me to when you want me to bring this up, but the one of the ancient plays that deals with this specifically is the play by Euripides, which is called the Bacchae.
Okay.
And it's Bacchus is the Roman name for Dionysus, and I learned about this because when I was a child, we had a dog named Bacchus, and then later, when listening to the Doors, when I was like 10 years old, is when I first started listening to the Doors, and I learned a lot of literature from reading about Jim Morrison, and people. That's how people learn, get into their heroes and stuff, and then go on from there. But he would constantly bring up Dionysus, and there's a story about when, and it kind of illustrates the beginnings of this, because when the Doors first formed, Jim and Ray Manzarek like met on a beach, and they decided to form I mean, this is kind of mythology, but they decided to form a band. And Ray Manzarek's like, yeah, we'll play concerts and, and we'll like get girls and make money or whatever. And Jim said, and this is in the film also, he said, it's like when Dionysus arrived on the shores of Greece, making all the women crazy. And he saw himself as kind of, he modeled himself as like a neo sort of Dionysus. But one of the interesting elements of this that is inherent in it, you were talking about the god of chaos, is that this is like a twofold god, and it ties in with like the nature of alcohol, because Bacchus and Dionysus is the god of wine. So for half the year, say Bacchus is a party god, right? Wine and
Bacchanalia.
Yes, the
Orgies, parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
exactly, a great
Same.
time,
Yeah.
so the big out in the open, Greco eyes wide shut party or whatever, and they're being, Greek and then Roman. Um, but then for the other half of the year, it's the other side of drinking or the other side of alcoholism, which is anger and lust, and they've had too much. And for that half, the women roam the countryside, insane and tearing apart the men. And part of the ritual for one of the cults of Bacchus was tearing, like biting men's flesh. And they often did this, symbolically, like with a beast, or a pig, usually like a dead animal that they'd sacrificed. But sometimes it was a man or a live person, which I think is uh, interesting to say the least, and probably ties into the book we're about to read in a like that's kind of a stretch, but some very dark and weird things do happen and are mentioned in the text in Jan Berry's text.
Hmm.
So we'll see where that goes, I suppose.
So I don't know if you have come across this, but I'm trying to recall my Pan and mystery school initiation, and I think I remember it's like going into the underworld and meeting Pan as the bride. Starts with an A, Ariande or something like that, and you have to have some kind of marriage in the underworld.
Are you talking about Ariadne?
Yes, yeah. Um, so
Let's see. That's mentioned in God, there's like huge text. That's mentioned in Edith Hamilton's mythology.
uh-huh.
I'll find it while you talk.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So we're talking about secret initiations. We're talking about people assuming God forms and having rituals and sometimes sexual rituals, because that is a component to all of these initiations that we're going to talk about, especially with Pan. He's god of lust and fecundity and descending from Dionysus Bacchus, who was the vegetation, fertility, dying god, like you just explained. Half the year he was one thing, and the other half, so he was an example of the, phallic current, if you will, because it dies and rises again and dies again. So just like vegetation. So Pan is a satyr. He's half man, half beast. So he is this archetype of the Baphomet and the alchemical man beast things. And also he's real and not real, and he's alive and dead at the same time. So he really embodies a lot of the alchemy, right?
Yes, I can't find Edith Hamilton. It's
Oh,
buried in
okay.
here somewhere. I
You
looked
tried really
everywhere.
hard. I watched you
Right.
valiantly.
It was right here, but I've got like 40 books right here, and I can't find it. I
That's
did a whole
okay.
stream on it the other night talking about Gemini, but it's a short passage, and she basically mentions what you said, and it's about Pan, related to nature and the symbolism of like the goat feet. Oftentimes, mythological creatures are like this. They're like a combination of three different creatures, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the griffin, or the I don't know, whatever. But or the Cerberus, right, having three heads. But Pan is has goat feet, and it like is obviously sexual, just right away looking at at him because of one particular thing, and that's also part of the theatrical nature of like the rituals and the bacchanal.
Mm-hmm.
What the horns are interesting. I mean, that seems to be obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But what about his human form, his human parts? What is the your immediate take?
Um, about his humanity.
Yeah, I mean, is it just so that we can recognize that there is a human there, and that's supposed to be something
Oh,
like there's a part of this God that is we recognize as like having some sort of human form?
yeah, or maybe the intelligence part. Um, Maybe it could represent that. Um, because he was getting popular as things were becoming more modern, so they were shifting into more like scientism instead of church in this time in the West. Um, so I wonder if that's why he, the humanity part of him maybe because be like rationality, intelligence.
Well, so okay, so when you say, during this time, I mean, are you saying like is this specifically the 1800s into the 20th century?
Yeah.
That this really
So
took
the
off?
earliest thing that I read this time, it was about 1890. What is this one? Yeah, 1890.
Oh,
So, yeah.
well, I was going to say I wonder that probably has something to do, at least in Britain,
Mm,
like with the Enlightenment and the neoclassical era is, the strict reason, strict it's an intellectual movement, and we get the French Revolution in continental Europe out of that, and then there are huge changes in Britain. But then we get the Romantic movement, like 1798 to the beginning of the 19th century. It's a
mm,
brief movement, but it's explosive, and it's like a return to nature, and this idea of like a utopia. There are a bunch of writers, even Samuel Taylor Coleridge went off and tried to form like these communes,
mhm.
and he called it a utopia. They wanted to form these places away from society where they thought man could live in harmony with nature.
Yeah.
um
Have you heard of the Fintorn people, the Fintorn cult? It was
no, what's
like
that?
a environmental nature cult in Britain in the 70s, and they have a lot of ties with like the UN and Theosophy. And the founders of that said that they made this place because of one, talking vegetables. Their vegetables in their garden talked to them, and they had an encounter in the forest with Pan.
The tomatoes were crying, man.
Yes, literally. So that's I talk about that in that a Rockfin show I did about the hidden dangers of the rainbow, the New Age movement. So
They're doing big things over there in America. There's this guy Chase Manson, and he said that the grass is crying, so you can't walk on the grass.
yeah.
What was
That
what was the name of the cult again?
I don't know if it's Findhorn or Findhorn because I always thought it was Findhorn, but some people have said it's Findhorn, Findhorn. It's really a weird thing.
We're going to call
So
ourselves Find Horn because we're looking for Pan's horns.
exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. So not only that, you have like Percy Shelley writing Hymn of Pan, Keats writing Hymn to Pan, and these are written within a year of each other. Um, so Pan really had his like peak in Victorian, and so it also goes along with orphans that we're gonna find, and that ties in with Peter Pan and Pan's Labyrinth. So that we've got all of the street urchins you could ever want coming up in this in this show about Pan. So do you want to dive in and start talking about old J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan?
Yes, well, you just mentioned Shelley and Keats,
Mm-hmm.
and finding more editions of Shelley and Keats here. Both for the folks at home, as they say, if you know anything about Percy Shelley or John Keats. John Keats is a thing of beauty is a joy forever, right? Keats died at 26 of tuberculosis, and he lived with Shelley in Rome. Shelley died at 30 something. He drowned. Shelley was notable. His poems include Ozymandias, which is the great poem about like humanity, the things that humans build pass away, right? They go into the sands of time. But he was notable because he was a outlandish sort of rebel figure at Cambridge, and he wrote a treatise on atheism. He like was a proponent of atheism, and people kind of argue whether this was a symbol of something else, but he was. read a new biography of him, and like everything that he writes it's funny because he's one of these guys who like sees this sort of spirituality and then like is a proponent of societal atheism,
Hmm.
which just says to me that he's into the occult and the esoteric, and he's against organized religion, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, of course, he was in this privileged class, and they they also are the people that like Shelley, especially. He was hanging out with Byron, and that's how they came up with Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of Frankenstein at that house in Switzerland. Anyway, moving on to Barry. What's interesting is that Barry comes at the tail end of the Victorian era. The Victorian era ends in 1901 with the death of Queen Victoria, and Victoria like dominated the 19th century in terms of her reign, her monarchy, colonialism. Um, Even the monarchs of the other European nations were nephews of Queen Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
They all looked exactly the same. And when she died, and then we went into the Edwardian and then the modern era, the world sort of, especially artistically, like really dove into it hard. Like industrialism just picked up in a huge way. And people like Barry, who was friends with H.G. Wells, Robert Louis Stevenson, a bunch of known writers. He was in these sort of writers groups.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's interesting is that while he had correspondence with these guys and he hung out with them, and H.G. Wells obviously did what he did, and was prolific. Barry didn't really, he didn't go into. He wasn't a hugely well-known, prolific writer of a variety of different styles. And he wasn't a celebrity like Robert Louis Stevenson became. Instead, he wrote this play, Peter Pan, and then I don't think he serialized it. He made it into a novel, but it was hugely popular. He wrote this one work and it was so big. It was so popular. And he was later, he wasn't just knighted. I think he became a baronet.
Mm-hmm.
He played with, when he was an adult, he was hanging out somewhere and he played with the young future Elizabeth II and her
Oh, wow.
sister.
Uh-huh.
He adopted this family. They were called Llewellyn, not Llewellyn Davis, Llewellyn Davies, I think, the
Babies. Yeah.
Davies family,
Mm-hmm.
Welsh family. And he was very close to them. And obviously the correlation between Barry and the activities of Lewis Carroll is like they did almost the same thing,
Yeah.
which is very weird and very
It's sus. Let's just say it. I mean,
very,
their
yes.
behavior is like, okay, like that's past whimsical into creepy. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, there.
Like,
So there's no hardcore imprint evidence of anything, right?
yeah.
But the I mean the context of the like hanging out is very weird. It's just very weird. Um,
I wonder
like
what like a FBI person would think of these writers or these profiles, or you know what I mean? Like,
they'd probably say
how many red
our
flags do
guy. They'd probably say our guy's doing really well. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to.
oh, it's like how many red flags does Lewis Carroll have and J.M. Barrie have put together? So many. So yeah, he it does act like a grooming story. I mean, the first book that Peter Pan, the character, appeared in, was called, what was it called? The Little White Bird, right? So in
Yeah,
the Little White Bird, there's this character called Peter Pan who is a 7-day-old baby who flies around a park and comes out when people have gone home and the magic takes over and the gates close. So there's already this transition from daytime activities to nighttime activities in the park, and I'll in London. Kensington Gardens is where a lot of this stuff takes place, right?
yeah. Do you know much about Kensington
I've been
Gardens?
there a couple of times, looked at the swans and looked around.
Um, I mean, it's important in the life of London. It's, central London. And there's an Ezra Pound poem about it. He says, like a skein of loose silk blown against a wall, she walks beside the railing of a path in Kensington Gardens, and she's dying piecemeal of a sort of emotional anemia.
Mm-hmm.
It goes on, but it's a lyric poem about, a woman. It also mentions children. It says, around about there's a rabble of the filthy, sturdy, unkillable infants of the very poor. They shall inherit the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose even, later there was the presence of like there was a clear dichotomy between rich and poor around there, which is interesting. I wonder if his story arose out of like the rate of infanticide, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It must have.
Well, we're talking about a time of the like industrial revolution. So there's a lot of orphans, there's a lot of early deaths, and some of these footage that you can see like on YouTube and TikTok, like the earliest cameras that they just like turn the camera on and it's like recording the street. Um, some of these they did in England are of the children, and the children coming out of the factories that they were working at, and they just look like they are 40 and they're 10 years old, but they're smoking cigarettes, they're brawling, they're dressed exactly like a mini adult would, with they don't look like children at all. And you can just see like the life was sucked out of them at this time in this place.
That's what William Blake had that poem Jerusalem. It's a really famous. I think they read it at the Olympics. And they made the song about it. It's but it has that verse, England's dark satanic mills.
Mm-hmm. So this is what's producing a lot of lost boys, right? Lost boys and girls. But in Peter Pan, it's a little bit different because Pan is the one that lures lost boys away from parents. So he doesn't go around collecting orphans, he snatches kids from homes.
Yeah, he makes them orphans, right? I suppose.
Yeah. Or as you're going to see, he'll betrays them and kills them. So, but we'll get there in a second.
Right.
So the little white bird, the baby goes out the window and flies around Kensington Park and tries to come home, but notices that mom has locked the window, and he can't get back in, and there's a new baby, so he's been replaced. And so this, yeah, this is crazy. So this,
That's the last time you go flying, grotty little wanker.
yeah. So he wanted to call it The Boy Who Hated Mothers, but they talked him out of it. And so this, because this flying baby was cursed to be orphan flying around Kensington Garden for the rest of his life.
Right. Who's going to buy that when it's
Yeah,
titled that?
I mean, these Victorian things are so dark. And it's funny because I have like a gallows sense of humor. I,
It's too wordy. It needs to be a mother hater or something. Just one word.
right. Um, so they're like, no, call it Little White Bird or whatever. So the Peter Pan gets taken out of that and made into kind of a different character, like grown up a little bit. And then the 1911 comes out as Peter and Wendy, which is the book that you read, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, this one. I mean, it's just titled Peter Pan, but it's
Oh, okay.
about it is about Peter and Wendy is a nuanced character. Well, I know we'll get to her, but she's an interest. The family is interesting, and it just right away from the
Darling.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're interesting because different analyses will sort of, I think, misrepresent what the family is supposed to be at the beginning. People kind of confuse the status of the family at the start of the book. Like, well, some people will say, oh, this is they're not a well-off family. In fact, they're dirt poor. They're very poor. And it's like, what? They're very poor. The mom and dad are together and they're going to a cocktail party.
Right.
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 I guess they get that because of Nana. Nana's a dog.
Oh, okay.
Right. So they're like, oh, well, they don't have a real nana. They got to use their dog as the nurse. So they're
Hmm.
obviously very poor. But I think that's just like a whimsical element that
Well, they
he
weren't
includes in
portrayed
it.
as poor in the Disney movie, were they?
No,
They
they're
were,
well off.
yeah. Um, this is so funny. I'm gonna tell you guys like a cringe secret of my childhood. So like Peter Pan, if I ever had a crush or like, an attraction to a fictional character as a child, it was Peter Pan and especially that cartoon um on Fox, Peter and Wendy. Do you remember that? Where he was a little more masculine, a little more grown up, a little more human. I was like, okay, I like this kid. And I actually, when I was young, I remember sitting in church and like dozing off and imagining like Peter Pan would come in the window and like whisk me off on an adventure and save me from like boring church or whatever. But I was like, when I was really young, right? So it's weird that this character has like a draw on young girls, especially. What do
I
you?
don't remember the show. Who played
Yeah.
him in the show?
Um, it was a cartoon.
Right. Okay.
So it was like an after school cartoon on Fox, and he he wore brown and he had brown hair. But I really loved that show, and I always had, an affinity for the character of Peter Pan. And now, as I'm growing up, I'm like, oh, this is on purpose, right?
I don't think that's unusual.
Yeah.
I think that's intentional as part of the story. Because for me, it's like the descriptions of Tinkerbell are obviously. I'm going to read one when we get to it, but it's
Okay.
obviously like it's a sexualized description of her. Have you ever seen have you ever seen Jordan Peterson's take on Peter Pan?
No.
Um, it's a short they call it an essay. It's like 7 minutes long though, and it's funny because he's really vehement. And I wish I could do a good Jordan Peterson, but also the whole time he was talking, I kept thinking, okay, his name should be Jordan Peter Panson or
Uh-huh.
Jordan Peterson Pan.
The
Um,
Peterson, Jordan Peter Pan.
yeah, Jordan Peter Pan's son.
Yeah. Yes.
And but he's like, why would Peter Pan want to be a Captain Hook? I mean, look, he's got a hook. Why?
Yeah.
He's like, but he's really angry about it. And when he gets to talking about Tinkerbell, he says some terms that are pretty spicy. But obviously, this is the thing. And then you go further and you get into Tiger Lily,
Hmm.
and Tiger Lily is even more so in the story. But I think that's the characters for one are at an age where I mean, like the kiss is very innocent at the beginning, but then there's one of the things is obviously that like Peter Pan won't grow up to have Wendy as his, romantic partner because
Hmm.
they can't grow up enough for that. And you have to understand that reading it.
Hmm.
Probably not, very young readers. But that has to be a part of it. So that's not unusual that you
Well,
thought Petey Pan was sexy.
yeah, if that's the word for it, when you're that young to be watching cartoons, I didn't like have weird fantasies, but I did want to go on adventures and like be his partner, right? And
One day Peter Pan will come and we'll fly far, far away.
yeah, exactly. So that's super embarrassing, but he is described as being between a bird and a boy in an outfit made of skeleton leaves. So he's not human and he's not quite animal. He's something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing with the shadow, the reason, the way that he enters the nursery in the first place, like chasing his shadow is like, I want to say original, but it's not original really because it's just the story of Psyche, right? It's the myth
Right.
of Psyche.
Which is the hidden god. Like, okay, so I'm gonna tell you guys something esoteric. The ancients saw what they're trying to do is see through the veil of reality. It's like that woodcut. What's it called? The Flammarion woodcut. where he pierces the veil of reality and he sees the galaxy, the mundane world, and the stars. You know what I'm talking about?
I just know that they want to break on through the other side,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So they call that seeing the god Pan.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a terrible first thing to see when you get to the other side. That's awful.
exactly. So he is a archetype also of the shadow, of the unseen, of the subconscious, of the, spirit realm. So yeah, Peter Pan's shadow is a really esoteric element to this story.
All right, a question. In Egyptian lore, when when they I did that book American Gods, and there's a scene, part of it is taken from mythology, and when they die, they confront, it's not said, they first confront, who do they first confront, like when they're about to go, they have to make the choice of like the three doors they go into, and
Maybe
there's,
Anubis. Um, so who would be down there? Nephthys, Osiris, Anubis are in the underworld. Who else?
is it someone with horns?
Anubis has like pointy ears.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I do know what these people are doing. So
Interesting.
yeah. Oh, with the horns, is that what you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just it's just interesting that in both of those they confront, this horned,
The horned god. Yeah, so
right.
that's the god of the witches also, witches Sabbath. They worship the horned god, and that's the forest and Pan he's all the universe. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, that's
he's Om in esoteric philosophies.
I don't know, folks, that gives me the creepy
It
crawlies.
is creepy. It's so creepy. And like the statues, I don't have my book at hand, but I have a picture in one of my books of a sculpture like of Pan giving it to a goat. It's super graphic. Like, yeah, you
Interesting.
see it all.
Well, um I saw a statue of him in I went to Pompeii on a on a school trip when I was 14. And I didn't know that, Pompeii is, you think it's just the this city in ruins that they excavated, but it's just a giant it's just a giant brothel.
Hmm.
All the frescoes are like, sexual stuff, which is interesting.
Hmm.
We thought it was awesome when we were 14. But there's a there's a statue of Pan playing the panpipe. But that's, I think most people, when they think of Pan, they just think of this, myth, like an innocent satyr myth creature playing a panpipe and, playing
Yeah.
about in nature. But um,
He just likes to frolic. What is your problem? He just like is cool and plays his flute. He plays with mermaids and sirens. So there's some more esoteric clues. Capricorn the goat is actually a sea goat, and this is connected to Pan.
a sea goat.
Yeah, he's got like goaty fish legs,
Oh man, it's even worse.
doesn't he? Pretty sure. Yeah. Um, so you've got the mermaids in Peter Pan, right? Um, and he is described as being innocent at the same time and cruel. So because he doesn't have a very good memory, and
Right. I know that when they have the statue of Peter Pan in, maybe it's in Kensington Gardens in London. There's a statue of Peter Pan.
yes, I bet you. Yeah, I bet there is.
Yeah, and I know that Barry didn't like the statue because they wanted the statue to be made modeled on the child that he modeled Peter Pan on. That child grew up and became a dude who fought in World War One. Then he later jumped off a bridge.
Yeah, I know
Um,
there's a lot of sad like reality stories around this.
you just imagine that guy's whole life, people are like, yeah, Petey Pan, whatever, Petey Pan.
Because
Even
you
your
have to remember these things were wildly popular. Like everyone had read Charles Dickens. Everyone had every child in England almost, had seen these plays. Um,
well, speaking just one thing about Dickens, because I was, he kind of comes to mind with all this, and one of the differences between Dickens and all of this, section of work, which is after Victoria, is that we have these sorts of characters like, especially in Great Expectations, where you have a kid who's poor, and then he has a benefactor who's a
mm,
prisoner that he helped, but it's anonymous. So that's like a stark difference between Barry's life and this. You have a benefactor. He gives all this money. The kid's educated. He goes off, he becomes a gentleman, but the guy doesn't reveal himself. Whereas this is like Barry's like, I love this family of 15 kids. I'm going to take them. I'm going to be with them all the time, 24/7.
yeah. And
Odd.
the parents died of, I mean, young. It was just a weird story. And what we're talking about, they made a movie with Johnny Depp, Finding Neverland, and they
Right.
kind of like whitewashed the whole story and took all the creep out of it. And put Johnny Depp in the role, so now everyone loves J.M. Barrie. And he's just a good philanthropist who like took a shining on a family one day. But he had been stalking this little 5-year-old in the park for a long time and like writing about him. But yeah, okay, so here's Capricorn, sea goat. You see that? So we're talking about. Okay, so in his original notes, in J.M. Barrie's original notes, Peter Pan was the villain and he described him as a demon boy. So he's getting kinder as he goes along, but in the beginning he was like a weird animal hybrid who's kind of a demon. And he took boys who wandered away from their parents in Kennington Park and convinced them to come to Neverland where kids can do whatever they want.
So he's a trickster.
Yes.
He's a pagan-esque Loki, just playing little innocent tricks until the tricks become,
He's a
um,
Pied Piper um,
right. Yes.
with the pan
Yeah.
flute,
Good call. Yeah. Good call.
luring kids away and saying, hey, if we go to this place, like, there's no grown-ups there. There's only enemies, pirates. We can do whatever we want. It's Pleasure Island. It's Neverland. And it's like, remember Michael Jackson?
Yes. Yeah.
He was obsessed with Peter Pan and being never growing up, which is a thelemic idea. The Aeon of Horus, the child, the immaturity, materialism, all of that. So, and Neverland is also the spirit world, the dream world, the other world.
Neverland, like
Netherlands.
right. I guess like crossing the river, Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. I mean, they do forget as soon as they fly.
Yes.
It's like they're flying. I don't know. It's like this Crowleyan, crossing the abyss.
They're astral
And
projecting.
oh, right.
Yeah. So, and he had been visiting Wendy before he lost his shadow there because he liked to hear the bedtime stories. So he'd been creeping on her before she ever met him.
She's a TI.
What's that?
A target.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Target.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And so he finally they have their meeting and he decides that he wants Wendy to come be his mother. Right. So we've got some issues floating around, some very Freudian things going on in this, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Psychology of J.M. Barrie.
So she's a TI, and then by extension, the other kids become those.
Mm-hmm.
They astral project out the window. They cross the abyss. They go flying
Mm-hmm.
with the boy who could fly, who's a shadow self, psyche, and skeleton clothes.
Yeah.
They go to Neverland Ranch.
Right.
slash Jeff Stein Effrey Island,
Yeah.
right? Where it's the place where, it's all kids and they don't grow up except for these, like this whole horde of adults, which is weird.
Right.
They're all Jimmy Buffett pirates.
Their parents.
Um,
Yeah.
um, there's the Kiefer Sutherland Lost Boys that are there.
Yes.
They're all in animal skins.
Shouting bangerang.
That's right. And they talk about how, when it gets to be too many people, first of all, Peter will depop the island. And then that turns into every time he breathes, they say a grown up will die in the real world,
Mm-hmm.
which is, he starts breathing, he starts panting when that happens, which is odd.
Right.
Um, Sometimes he even kills off his own guys.
He does. Because it's all a dream to him. It's all a game to him. Right? Peter Pan, like the psychology of this hero is pretty dark actually. He's forgetful, he's cruel to the boys. He, like teases them with fake food when they're actually hungry. He's a very uh he treats them more like captives, really, right?
Right.
Like a drill sergeant. This is my regimen, and he brings Wendy to be their mother.
I'm hungry for I'm hungry for mushy peas.
Yeah.
Just use your imagination, pretend there's food.
Well, you remember in that scene in Hook where they brought the food, they manifested all of the slop in the food. We'll get to that. That's one of my favorite scenes, the food fight in Hook.
I don't want it. I want some. I'm hungry for meat cubes and slave slop.
Yeah.
And then it's like, multicolored ice cream slop.
Yeah. Like if whipped cream and Play-Doh were a food. Okay, so now we're talking still about the book, the J.M. Barrie book. That was a short story about a weird baby that became a play that now is one of the most beloved children's stories of all time, recreated ad nauseum, and a classic of Walt Disney. Peter Pan, my elementary school boyfriend. So he turns on the Lost Boys when they figure out that they actually do have a family, right? So when the Lost Boys get their consciousness back and they say, hey, what's been going on? I remember that, I don't belong here, then it's over for them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, well, when that happens, what about Michael, Alvin, Theodore, and Wendy or whatever? What I don't remember what they think when that's going on with the Lost Boys. Oh, you know what it is? It's that Wendy keeps saying that her mother's going to leave the window open, right?
Uh-huh.
She's not going to forget us. The family will not forget us. They'll leave the window open. We'll be able to just return anytime. And then finally, Peter's like, no, they won't. They'll forget about you. In fact, they've probably already forgotten about you. That's what happened to me. I left, and then a day later, they've shut the window and they said, and they forgot about me. So,
This says something a Trafficker would say,
mhm.
isn't it?
Yeah, I kept thinking of that guy. I don't want to say his name on here. Ghani Josh. Remember whatever happened to Ghani Josh,
Mm-hmm.
the kid on the milk crate?
Mm-hmm.
I kept thinking of that during this thing because it's essentially like, in fact, wasn't he taken out a window? I think he was gone out a window.
Mm. And one of those girls in the Caribbean went out the window, didn't she too? One of those
There was a window.
profile kidnappings.
There was a window involved with what's her name? Madeline? No, not Madeline
That's it.
McCann.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a window with that, and then the what's the beauty pageant? The girl, the little girl. She wasn't taken, but she, they found her in the house. The little, what's her name?
Oh, Ramsey.
Yeah, yes. So there was a window involved with that. They tried
Uh-huh.
to say they tried to take her out the window. The movie Prisoners. I did that movie not too long ago, and it involves this and like the
That Jake
guys.
Gyllenhaal movie.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
the
really
guys.
good horror movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah. dark.
Yeah. So now we're getting somewhere with Peter Pan and the epidemic of missing 411 children. Because if you think about the numbers of missing children, it's kind of black pill to think about, just hundreds of thousands. Like, what in the heck?
Yeah, I think the numbers are very, I mean, just the numbers that they estimate, talking about Atlanta, a number that, end up either in Atlanta as street kids or that go through Atlanta is like,
Mhm.
it's like an unbelievable number. Actually, I knew one of my friends, this is kind of, odd, but when I was a kid, one of my friends, his mom, someone tried to do this at their house, at my best friend's house. And they had a 2-story house. He had 4 brothers. They were all on the bottom floor, but his mom was upstairs and woke up like there was a dude like in the room.
Mhm.
And she jumped out the window, like second story. She just jumped right out the window,
Whoa.
and ran to the neighbor's house. And then the cops got there, or whatever, and this dude wasn't there. And then the next week, their house burned down.
Whoa, dude.
Dude came back and burned the house down. Yeah, and they did catch the dude. And he was, whatever. It was, I don't know, but
Don't be summoning Pan. Get all the pans out of your house.
right, and lock the damn windows.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So he takes them to a place that promises like a utopia of children, but it's actually a war zone, right? It's
Yes.
a perpetual war zone between Lost Boys and pirates and other like beasties that are hostile. And you come to find out Peter started the war when he cut off Hook's hand, and he recruits child soldiers to fight these adult pirates. So he's like
the be
PRASF
the beast of no name. He recruits them. It is odd.
and doing a Coney 2012 on
Oh my god,
them,
that's
right?
true.
And now they have to fight these pirates. And if they remember where they came from, then Peter turns on them and kills them. And then there's this,
Which is very like Monarch.
yeah, and there's this hypothesis that the pirates were the previous Lost Boys who grew up and escaped Peter, right?
Yeah.
And so he tricked all these kids because he hates mothers, because he was shut out in the beginning at 7 days old. And when he grew up, he steals kids away from their family. This is really deep psychologically. Like, I feel like I know what happened to Jamberry now, in a way. What do you think?
Well, I think that part of the reason it works is because it's complex and it's nuanced like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we can sort of try and parse out the symbolism in the book. And I think it's valid. All the interpretations of the book are valid. It's, but even the Hook thing, the thing about the pirates being the ex Lost Boys, in a way it makes sense. I'm not sure in the end it makes sense, or that they are the good guys,
Mm-hmm.
because they also are trying to take the kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to take them home.
Right. But
So
that did come up in, oh no, we watched Pan. We'll get to that, the one with huge ass man.
yeah.
So when Peter convinces Wendy to come play mother for all the Lost Boys, and I really also liked the character Wendy when I was young. I wanted my name to be Wendy. And I believe this was the first that was a made up name for this story. Was it a name before that? I don't know. I heard that somewhere.
I haven't thought about that.
So the character of Wendy's interesting, and her rivalry between herself and Tinkerbell. So when she arrives to Neverland, she's almost shot down because Tinkerbell gave a false command. You remember that?
Yes, yes.
Which was
Tinkerbell
her welcome.
immediately, yeah, Tinkerbell immediately does not like her.
Yeah.
And it's made obvious why. You know, she's a rival. Tinkerbell obviously loves Peter Pan. Um, she's you know, he goes into the nature of the pixies, you know, and the sprites and how they come about, which is interesting. But also that she's called Tinkerbell because she's a tinkerer, right?
Mm.
She like fixes all the little things.
Hmm.
Um, and what do you think about her? I mean, in terms of not to skip like towards the end, but you know what she does in the end. She, you know, the idea of sacrifice or self-sacrifice is obviously important in the book.
Hmm.
And it's really the only way they're going to get out of the predicament they're in, whether it's out of the dream world or out of Neverland or what, or whether Peter Pan will you know do something selfless. But Tinkerbell is the one who does that.
Mm. So she's kind of the selfless one, the conscience of Peter Pan, maybe. The She's definitely his feminine counterpart.
Yeah, and you know she's physically small. She's a light being. She's all
Hmm.
light.
Mm.
She and in fact they discuss, and there's a part in the book where they're flying and they are going to be spotted, I think, by the pirates, and they can sort of camouflage themselves, but they've got Tinkerbell, and so they're like, just you know, just tell her to like dampen her light, and she can't do that, so she hides like in John's you know top hat.
Mm.
But it's interesting, you know, she's a being of light, man. But she you know, she's from this like other world, kind of like Peter is. How would she have like a free will in terms of the like the paradigm within the story, right?
Hmm.
But she ends up, you know, she ends up being the character who um you know is has true love, right? She sacrifices
Mm.
herself for her love.
Hmm.
Whereas Wendy's love is totally different. Wendy's love is like a, you know, a motherly love. She's a whole, you know, and that's great. She's a wholesome character. She wants to sort of remain even keeled throughout the thing.
Hmm.
Um, the brothers they don't really like change. They don't really like, you know, their characters aren't really elevated. They don't really like learn anything over the passage of time.
When you mentioned Top Hat, I was like, I just remembered one of those was he wore that the entire time. That's Masonic.
Yeah, that's remember the picture of Crowley as Winston Churchill with
Yeah,
the top hat.
yeah. So more esoteric elements in this. Um, and then when they get home, Wendy has a generational pact with Peter, right?
Yeah, what does she say? She's that's in the that's they use that in Hook in the film Hook, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is confusing, by the way, in that film because first of all, Robin Williams is Peter Pan, which is like that's confusing right away. That's the
Yeah.
reason that's the reason I've never liked the film. I just can't.
It's
I'm
the
like,
little shorts that did it for me. His little tattered shorts. That's so stupid.
and then and then so then he's got a wife, and you're like, is this Wendy?
Right.
But Wendy is the old lady who's Maggie Smith, by the way,
Yeah.
and it's like 1991, and she's been old for like 700 years in the movies.
Right? I know. Like she looked exactly the same in Downton Abbey as she did in Hook, which was like 30 years later. Like what the heck? She was born like that. Okay. So Peter comes back to snatch Wendy's daughter, and then when Wendy's daughter grows up, he comes back to snatch daughter. So there's some generational messing around here, some curses. You got your Peter Pan demon on your family. You need to break those soul ties, right?
We'll miss you, Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be back forever for all the generations of your family, chasing my shadow.
He's like
I'll get.
Leonardo DiCaprio, like when they get too old, he has to go to the younger, right? She's aged out of Peter Pan adventure. Um, well, okay. I want to get to the movie, but we're having fun on the book still. Let's see.
Well, um, so you want to hear a couple things from the text?
Yeah.
Um, well, I realized first of all, I realized that where the character of Peter Pan, comes from, at least in a literary sense, and
Mhm.
to me, he's a Barry takes cues from prior, sprite characters in literature, and a couple of these that are big are Ariel in The Tempest, in Shakespeare's Tempest. And Ariel is, if we're talking Disney, we think Ariel, the mermaid, but Ariel in the Tempest, I did a Tempest analysis. Ariel is a kind of androgynous sprite
Mhm.
who Prospero, the wizard, uses to, to drive the plot along. And he's a spirit of the air. So he's just like Peter Pan. Um, he's also kind of a trickster character. He does good and bad things within the context of the play.
Mhm.
Um, Also, another one is there's the famous monologue by Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet, which I have somewhere around here. Anyway, and it's the Queen Mab speech that Mercutio gives. He's talking to Romeo, and he's before they go to the party, and he talks about Queen Mab, who is rides her, her chariot, and in this, he's Queen Mab is mentioned in the text. Let's see, page 70 of this book. It says, this is the Peter Pan book. It says,
Mhm.
no woman, however large, could have had a more exquisite boudoir and bedchamber combined. He's talking about Tinkerbell's, where Tinkerbell lives
Mhm.
in Neverland. It says, the couch, as she always called it, was a genuine Queen Mab with club legs, and she varied the bedspreads according to what fruit blossom was in season. Her mirror was a Puss in Boots, of which there are now only three, unshipped, known to the fairy dealers. The washstand was a pie crust and reversible. The chest of drawers, an authentic, charming, the sixth, and the carpet and the rugs of the best, the early period of Marjorie and Robin. There was a chandelier from Tiddlywinks for the look of the thing, but of course she lit the residence herself. In other words, there's sort of he's supplanting like famous names of furniture like Chippendales and stuff with kind of whimsical, mystical fairy names, and saying that like she's engaged um in the commerce of like fitting her apartment out kind of like a Marie Antoinette would do,
Mhm.
right? But she's a little fairy, and of course the what was the other reference to Shakespeare in there? Oh no, it wasn't Shakespeare. It was Cinderella. There's kind of Cinderella imagery in there because of the fairy godmothers
Yeah.
who in the film like turn into little sort of light beings, pixie beings,
Mhm.
right, when they're hovering around her. Um, there's also when I'll read the description of Hook because this is interesting. He's like a Byronic hero in this. He's dark, and he's a well-spoken, like handsome devil. And it says he's described as a dark jewel,
Mhm.
um, which like is something left out of like films. It's only in the text that you get this, which
Yeah.
is interesting. Do you want me to read it real quick?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I wrote all over the text, so it's hard for me to get this.
No, because
It
we were
says,
laughing about Dustin Hoffman as Hook and how like gross his close-ups were of his like mustache and stuff. It kind of like grossed me out when I was a kid. So yeah, what did
yeah, they chose Dusty Mothman,
yeah,
right, as
yeah,
Captain Hook, and he's not Byronic or a handsome devil at all.
right.
The Pan movie gets Hugh Jackman, which is still not really accurate. They like take some sort of I don't know what they're doing with that.
That was weird. Yeah, we'll get to it. Mad Max.
Yeah, but I kept thinking like he's modeled on Charles II, and then sure enough, I went back and I was reading the book, and he mentions him. He says, let's see, he was named James Hook, or as he wrote it himself, Jazz Hook, of which it is said he was the only. Let me see. He was the only man that the sea cook feared. So I think he's kind of like Captain Cook, but he's
Mm-hmm.
Captain Hook, so he takes it from that. He lay at ease in a rough chariot drawn and propelled by his men, and instead of a right hand, he had the iron hook with which ever and anon he encouraged them to increase their pace. As dogs, this terrible man treated and addressed them, and as dogs they obeyed him. To person, he was a cadaverous and black of ice, that his hair was dressed in long curls, which at a little distance looked like black candles and gave a singularly threatening expression to his handsome countenance.
Mm.
His eyes were of the blue of the forget-me-not and of a profound melancholy.
Mm.
An interesting detail. Save when he was plunging his hook into you, at which time two red spots appeared in them and lit them horribly. Skipping a little bit, it says he was a raconteur of repute. He was never more sinister than when he was most polite, which is probably the truest test of breeding, and the elegance of his diction, even when he was swearing, no less than the distinction of his demeanor, showed him one of a different caste from his crew. And then finally, let's see, the name of Charles II, having heard it said in some earlier period of his career that he bore a strange resemblance to the ill-fated Stuarts. So he's a handsome devil. He looks like Charles II. Charles II, for the folks at home, Charles II was the monarch who, in the 1660s, returned to England to restore the monarchy after the period of the Protectorate, which was the Puritans and Cromwell, and it was known as the Restoration. He was a foppish character with these
I have a
long
picture you
black
sent me.
curls.
What is that?
Yeah, yeah. So there's John Depp as the Earl of Wilmot, and then John Malcatraz as Charles II, and that's from the film The Libertine, which is a pretty.
Oh, right. Because that's what Pan is about, liberty, right? That's his thing. Yeah. So, okay, yeah, you've got the age of what did you say? Foppish dandies with the rufflies and the curl wigs and what else they got? Sleeves, little like ruffle sleeves.
Buttons, sleeves, have a French influence.
I don't mind like Three Musketeers look on guys. It can be okay. It can be masculine and artistic at the same time. Like I don't hate it, but the curly wigs, I think that's going a little far. What do you think? Such a weird like costume to have.
Why do you want to grow up? He asked, I've got a hook for a hand. I mean, he's got a, right. So he's got his left hand. So he's
Yeah.
got the left hand path, but he's got his right hook hand.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's for
And,
hooking kids.
and also, the blue eyes, which get red dots in them, like when he's hooking someone, the red dots of blood. That's a
Yeah.
weird detail. But yeah, he's surrounded by, he's surrounded by decadence that, they continuously talk about like the pearls and the jewels and the diamonds that the pirates have. But of course the pirates are all like straight up pirates.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing is he was Blackbeard's like right-hand man, but then he ends up worse than Blackbeard.
Oh, okay. And Blackbeard
So
will come up later in Pan, the movie, right? The live action movie. So this book, all right, I heard that J.M. Barrie had this obsession with Boyhood. And okay, put that on pause because am I going crazy or were you wearing a white hat before? Like, did you switch hats? Oh, okay. All right. I was like,
wait,
that's a
wait,
Mandela thing.
well, wait till I put on my Charles II wig, then you're
I'm
really
like,
gonna freak out.
how many hats is he switching? And because sometimes you have glasses on and sometimes you don't. And I like whenever
I
I
know.
look up, you have a different
I
like
know. I'm not trying to
motion.
drive anybody's like schizophrenia crazy that's going to watch this later. I'm just trying to. I try and change my look every 5 seconds on purpose. No, I'm just.
It's funny. It's like, what's it gonna look like next time I look up? Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, he
My
mentioned,
OCD,
yeah,
ADHD. I just can't stay still.
he well, he had a tragedy that his brother died at age 13, and that brother was his mom's favorite, and her like comfort, she would say, was that the boy would remain a boy forever. So he kind of got that stuck in his psyche somehow. And then when he grew up, he became this, like we were saying before, Uncle Jim. They called him to the Davies family. And he would write these weird, questionable letters to the kids, like, I really fancy you, but don't tell anyone. Like, straight up, that's not appropriate. What do you think?
I think that's total creeper material. Look, the letters in the first place is, you know, the letters should be like, I went on an adventure and it was great, and here's a postcard.
But why is a grown man writing letters to young kids? I don't even try and tell me it was a different time, because
No, no,
you know
that's
what
odd.
I mean? So then there was also questions about the custody when both the parents died. Um, so you had an intact family until this guy came along, and suddenly he inherits like five kids, right? Was that it? Or how many?
It was a bunch of them.
Yeah. And the 5 year old George was the one that he liked the most. And there's this whole like controversy. Did he change the will to make him be the one who had custody of the kids because he was like the proprietor of the will? But it could have said something like to a girl's name, and he could have changed it. I don't know. I just watched this like documentary on YouTube about J.M. Barrie. So there's a lot of questions that keep popping up about his like character, and after the fact, and like after it, how you see how their lives turned out. You could see that they were very troubled people.
Yeah, I mean, did he have any familial, ties with this family at all? Like any blood ties?
No, I think the story was he just met them in the park one day or something like that. I don't
Oh
think.
boy, that's
No.
even worse.
So, and we were talking about the park and what happens in the parks at night. And then this book comes out, which is about a guy trying to get favor of a young kid by telling him stories. And this is just like, the more you hear about it, the worse it gets.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I've always I can't ever read about Carol because of this, because his thing was like photographs or whatever.
Right. I
And I've
mean,
never I've never
I've
liked
seen
Alice
them
in
for that.
Wonderland.
And they would put anybody in jail over that today. Like, just because it's in sepia and it was way back when, it doesn't make it not what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I've never liked Jabberwocky. I've never liked Alice in Wonderland. Of the nonsensical nature of like Carol stuff is just like outright weird, and I've never liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, I've never paid attention to J.M. Barrie's life before. I've never looked into his life. But it's definitely it's
Oh, and then
it's not good.
so the boy that played Peter Pan in the Walt Disney cartoon, Bobby Driscoll, he had a very tragic time too. And there was some scandals that you can read about in that book, Hollywood Babylon by Kenneth Anger.
Yeah, I've got that.
So it's either, I don't know if it's in part one or two, but there's a chapter about Bobby Driscoll and Walt Disney and lots of rumors about that. And he was like, the first child star, and the first cautionary tale of like how the industry treats children and chews them up and spits them out. And he like died penniless and unclaimed after a lot of tragedies in his life. So this Pan character and this Peter Pan especially has a lot of dark stuff around it.
The kid who played Heartful Dodger in the Oliver Twist 19 it was Best Picture, I think, 1968. The kid who played Artful Dodger, he also had a it was bad for him as well. Kenneth Anger he wasn't a child star, but didn't he start off as a child actor himself? He was in I think he was in Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, was he? Well, Pan.
Yeah.
Well, the Fairy King and there's satyrs and stuff in that.
Yep. Oberon and yeah, that's the other one that's a good call. That Peter Pan is similar to the Puck,
Puck, exactly.
who's
Right.
also a trickster.
Mm-hmm. So before we move on to movies, I like this combination of like books and movies that were books. So is there anything else you want to say about the actual book Peter Pan?
Well, I'm gonna go back into it like as we go because
Okay.
there's some more interesting things that are revelatory as we go. Just some of the passages,
Okay.
and the language of them. But they'll I'm sure they'll come up organically
Okay.
as we do this.
Let's talk
And
about the 2015 movie Pan first, and then what do Hook, and then we're gonna have to do part two next week where we cover the God Pan and Pan's Labyrinth and like more Pan, more Peter Pan probably too.
there's so much there's so much material with this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that you know uh, Jay and I did Wizard of Oz, and it fits into the same milieu.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both super famous, and this one is like there's so many I mean, just the movies alone, the number of remakes of the movie that you mentioned that earlier. It's crazy.
And you were like, do you remember the live action play? And I was laughing because it was androgynous. It was a woman
Yeah.
playing a little boy, right?
Yes.
And I always thought, I'm like, that's a little too fruity, even for like a girl. That's just, I don't know, it's over the top, silly. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean,
I was like, what is this?
I thought that in kindergarten when they
Oh,
made us
Peter
watch
Pan was
it.
like a badass adventurer that fought pirates, not a woman.
Right. I was like, dude, I want to be Peter Pan in this play because I'm going to get to fly,
Huh.
and I get a sword and I get like this cool hat and stuff. And then they showed us the movie and I'm like, why are they of all them, why didn't they just show us the animated
Yeah.
movie instead of this lady, this like grown lady playing Peter Pan? She's clearly a lady, which is weird.
Yeah, I know.
And then in Hook, Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell. It's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
don't know.
true.
Even that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I always thought, like, why are they using a grown lady to be? But okay, so that movie was
But
just cast weird
but
anyways.
I guess if they did the opposite, it would also be weird. So no matter
Yeah.
how they do it, just keep it a book.
Just maybe don't creep on kids and write it in books.
Right. Right.
Cut this off at the root. All right, let's talk about Pan 2015. Probably not a lot of you have seen this because it was kind of a flop, I think. It was a Warner Brothers. It was not awesome overall as a movie. I had fun watching it for the show, but it starts off in Kensington Gardens, right? And at the Lambeth Home for Boys, where Peter is dropped off. And what is the axiom of orphans is that they still have parents that love them out there somewhere. And for some inexplicable reason, they are there at the orphanage. And so it's very formulaic at the beginning.
It's also awful. Like it is absolutely it's hellish. It's so bad.
The action scenes were very drawn out. And yeah, so they drop off baby Peter and they give him his little panpipes as his totem that he's, somebody loves him. Right. And here you have the Victorians and their orphans. And
Did you have anything like that when you were a kid? Like an instrument?
what do you mean?
Like I feel like little kids sometimes get like a little, like you were saying, the totem, like they get like a little, there's something that they play with that's unusual. Like I had a harmonica.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember it. I was like 2 and I had like a giant harmonica and I would just play it, like play the harmonica all day long, like drooling out of this harmonica. And he's got a panpipe. You didn't have a.
I did have okay, so those little plastic recorders that just have like one octave on them. I play on that all the time. You know what I'm talking about? And those bells that they're just like a box of metal with a rubber bing, but they're toned like different sizes, and you're like bong
Yeah.
bong, and you pick up the others bong bong. Remember those? So as a very young kid, yeah, I had a little recorder and I had those bells.
I think the recorder is like the most torturous instrument to like teach little kids to play, because the parents, every like for generations, the parents are like, oh, it's so wonderful, it's beautiful. You learn how to play hot cross buns on it, and it's always terrible.
But I know, but it's so fun for a kid, and you feel like, literally like I'm Beethoven with this, like like I am a classical. When you got a recorder in your backpack, man, that's like you're a Renaissance kid, right?
Yeah, and you're learning tones. You're
Yeah.
learning. I'm sure there's something about it. I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, I was not an orphan, so I didn't have any like gifts bestowed upon me. I had good parents because I did not grow up in London in World War II. So this actually is taking place in what, 1945 or 44, but it
It
looks like Victorian England.
it does. It looks like Victorian England, but it is. I think you're right. It's during the Blitz.
Yeah. And the nuns are over the top, mean, abusive, fat, greedy, all of the things. Religion is always portrayed as hypocrites.
Yeah, the nuns. It reminded me of the story that came out a few years ago about what's the Irish orphanage. I forget the name of it. There's an Irish orphanage where they found a lot of evidence of disappeared people on
Mm-hmm.
the grounds of the orphanage, and that there are all these stories about the nuns that were exactly like this in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, is that you're watching the movie and you're like, these nuns are absolutely terrible. This is awful. But then you're like, oh no, this is probably true to life. Now, if that's the case, then what happens to them is takes on a different it's a different element, because it's like then it becomes like this monarch
Yes.
psychic mind split that happens.
Yeah. And that's why Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan, I would say, are like the top three, you know, programming scripts for kids. So yeah, you definitely have this like monarch element because it's World War II. And they even call her a dirty old nun. And she's hiding food. Remember, she's a dirty old nun. And because she's hiding food from the kids, she's hoarding. She is beating them. And then they fly the Jolly Roger flag late at night, and the pirates come and kidnap the kids. So this is getting weird.
So they fly the Yale flag at night, and
Yeah. They fly the skull and bones
right.
and summon the pirates, and the pirates come and kidnap the kids so there's less mouths to feed.
It's I also thought of, it's the same story at the beginning of this film as what happens at the beginning of The Saint with Val killing it. Remember Simon Templar?
Mm-hmm.
With the food and everything, they lock up all the food, and Simon
Mm-hmm.
Templar, it's a kid, the child version of Simon Templar, and he puts on the Templar flag, picks the lock, liberates the food, feeds the children, and then the girl, I think that's when the girl like falls and dies.
Yeah. And so he's a liberator, like you just said. And we'll see at the end of the movie, he comes back and he liberates the orphans from there and takes them to Neverland. Um, so the pirates come and they kidnap the boys, and they have this like scene where the fighter planes during the air raid of London in 1944 or something are fighting the stupid pirate ship in the air. Remember that?
Yeah, they're doing the dog fighting against the NOTSEE pirate ships. Yeah.
So the
And
Foo Fighters were actually pirate ships going to and from Neverland.
space pirates.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Hotler's space pirates.
Yep. Pirates in Space. That's actually a Disney movie. Treasure something? Treasure Planet. Remember that Disney cartoon?
Treasure Planet.
Yeah, space pirates.
I remember the movie Ice Pirates with Robert Urich. That's a
No,
terrible. That's a terrible.
no. Um, so when he's floating in space, he touches Saturn. Do you remember that? Now
So
we're back to Capricorn.
so he goes to the hexagonal storms on the
Mhm.
poles of Saturn.
Yeah. Yes.
He learns from Set.
Yes.
Oh,
He comes
what
out
was
with the
the
monolith from 2001.
what was the Jude Law movie? You guys covered it. It was Jude Law, Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. Remember that? That has like they're not pirates, but floating. I mean, they're it's like World War II, but it's the
Yeah.
future. You remember
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah.
Um, oh, J.G. Ballard's Empire of the Sun,
Mhm.
which is also a Spielberg movie, right, with Christian Bale.
I don't think I've
Um,
seen
he
that.
yeah, he's a privileged kid living in Shanghai with his colonialist governor dad, but then becomes an orphan in a prisoner of war camp, and the planes play a big role in that film too.
Mhm.
So in other words, it's a motif, with this kind of story.
Mm.
Okay.
So, you've got the pirates. They're not, Peter Pan's not luring kids to Neverland anymore. They're just straight up grabbing them now. They're snatching them. And when they get there, Neverland is like Mad Max Thunderdome,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yes. No. Yeah. It is. They go to Bartertown,
Yeah.
and all the feral kids are there, like in
Yeah.
the canyon,
Hmm.
and then they somehow change that um to what's the last one? A Fury Road,
Uh-huh.
right? With the dude with the mask on, like standing at the on the top of the rock when he does the thing and like the water comes out, and the same thing happened in this. It was interesting because he's standing at the top of the abyss, I guess, where all the feral kids are.
Right.
But then it went into here we are now, entertainer. I was like, oh my god, what
Yes,
is this?
they're singing Nirvana, which I don't know if I'm crazy making these connections, but that is also going along with the yogic version of Pan, the Crowley version of Pan, Nirvana and Tantra and Indian um, gods and stuff like that, which we'll talk about when we talk about this one. Hey, oh, real quick, can you hold up the book Pan or Peter Pan? Because I noticed you had a really good picture on the copy. Yeah. Okay.
J.M. Barrie.
Very good. Okay.
I
Oh, and it's
first read.
just his shadow, right? It's just his outline, his
That's
shadow.
right. I
Mm.
first read this. I got this one in England. Christmas Day 2000.
Hmm. Cool.
Short
So
pocket edition.
they arrive to Neverland. Huge ass man is like some kind of rock star warlord, the pirate Blackbeard, right?
What was the? I mean, like, what was the deal with the music? Because
They were singing other pop songs. I didn't write them down, but they did break into song a couple more times.
but the songs that they chose, it was an odd selection. It was like the movie came out. What'd you say? 2015, something like that.
2015, yeah.
I mean, and they sing a Nirvana song. Like,
Yeah,
if kids went to see this, like, they wouldn't get the reference.
right.
I
I
guess.
I don't know if they chose it just for the lyrics or I don't know why, but never mind. They're singing Nirvana. And what they're doing is capturing children to work in a mine. So you've got the
Temple of Doom.
themes. Yeah, yes. Took the berry dust from here. So it's like the Victorian era of child workers in factories. You've got these themes of children in the mines, children soldiers, right? Uh,
They took these stones from here.
yeah, they took the stones from here.
Yeah, no,
Jay
yeah,
does
there
it
were
really
there
good.
were they were working in a mine. I guess they're working in a lithium mine, right? And they're
Yes.
but this time they're mining for
No, but seriously, like this is like blood diamond stuff. This is mining, like you just said, for like things that power the cell phones and right. So it's child slavery.
but in this one they're mining for like I can't really say it, Drino.
Oh yeah?
That's what I thought.
Okay, so in the movie they call it pixie dust or pixel or something like that. So why
Yeah.
do you think that it's
Well, because the I mean, I see that ties in with Peter Pan as a theme, right?
okay?
It's remaining forever young.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
they remain young because of the boys. There's an island. There's always an
yeah,
island.
yeah.
Um, there's older.
Oh yeah.
There's
Neverland is like the island. Okay, keep going.
there are older guys there
Mm-hmm.
who are older, but they're going to remain in that place. So
Mm-hmm.
in a way, they're remaining younger. But also, they are doing sea traffic, like place to place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's psychic split. There's the searching for your shadow. There's the gaslighting of telling, the imaginary food and keeping them there. Um, what else? They're in the abyss, like the bottom of their psyche,
Mm-hmm.
mining for this like light illuminated stuff.
Right. Did you notice that he says that when they're in the mine, they're free from life's dungeon and he grants them liberty and opportunity? So are they're not dead, but they are in like a on a live world.
Yeah, they're granted liberty, the freedom to do whatever. Like in the book, they're granted the freedom to do whatever they want. They can play these games, they can play war, they can, um, but the question is like, what does that mean? What is freedom and liberty like with no belief? They believe in Peter Pan, but Peter Pan is always tricking them.
He's capricious and yeah.
Right. In Hook, when who's it, Rufio?
Hmm.
When Rufio dies, remember the last thing he says? He says, I just wish that I could have a father.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Even
So
death is
Peter Pan is
another.
their father figure too.
Right. They say that they're lucky because they have a mother. They don't have a mother.
Hmm.
They want. I guess that's what the whole thing is about. At least just the big thing on the surface, which is that there's a trade off you make. Right. You want to be forever young. You want to be a kid, and you want to be free from responsibility and have adventures and have an imagination. But if that happens, then you won't be able to grow up to have experience love and you take care of other people and the fullness of life.
Hmm.
And there's always something missing when you're a kid because even though they're free when they're kids, they still depend on their parents to take care of them. And
Well,
they don't
and
they don't have that.
this is like a motif. The Peter Pan boy who doesn't want to grow up, failure to launch, neat, Crowleyan child. And I saw this tweet by a red pill person. Let me see. It just described everything you just said because he was like describing a high value male, but it was like Peter Pan stuff. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, a bachelor in his 40s or 50s, a vasectomy, child free by choice, travels extensively, reads voraciously, nothing wrong with reading, but swims in the sea every morning in the sunshine, enjoys the very best of life, unfettered by the concerns and responsibilities others have. So, this is the kind of like checklist that's going around the red pill dudes for like what is a high value man and is totally like Peter Pan.
Yeah, all that stuff is great, but you know, you have all that and then eventually the things fade and then you're older and then you can't even do those things and then you die alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least when you're born, like there's people in the hospital room and you're being, they're helping you be born, right?
Yeah.
But the whole point of this is that obviously Peter Pan is a sad. I don't know if he's a tragic figure, but he's a sad figure. I guess Hook is probably a tragic figure in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not like a truly tragic figure because he is the villain, but in at least in the text. Um, but he remarks on this, right? He okay. Oh, the other element that we haven't mentioned yet is that the one thing that the villain is afraid of, which is is it a crocodile or an alligator? I guess it's a
Crocodile. I don't
so
know.
the crocodile, took his hand, and the crocodile, he knows the crocodile is always approaching when he hears the tick tock, the sound of the clock.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that Hook is afraid of is also time.
Yes.
He's afraid of the passage of time because he knows it's his impending doom,
Yeah.
and yet he wants the boys to share in that. Like, does that mean that he wants them to grow up, like to be with them so that they can also die in a way?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Lost Boys and Peter Pan, they use that against Captain Hook. Like they hold up the clocks and they mimic the sound of the clock, but they don't understand what it means because they're too young to understand.
Right.
Like when you go,
Um,
it's like when you go to the funeral of like a family member and you're 5 years old and you don't understand.
yeah. Time is on your side still, and time is not on Hook's side,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And there, that connects it to Saturn again with the time element. So
Kronos.
Chronos, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so they're down in the mines, slaving away for uranium or whatever they're trying to get, fairy dust. Um, the kid Pan, he has to walk the plank, but discovers he can fly because apparently he is the son of the moon and of a fairy king. So when we talk about Pan's Labyrinth, this is going to come up again. How she is actually a princess, or the demon tells her that she's not a human in the underworld. She's actually princess of the underworld. So Pan is a prince of the Neverland in this movie, Pan 2015. Right?
Yeah. Um, I just did analysis of something where one of the women was I found out she was a demigoddess. What was it? Something not or it was something to do with Orpheus. Who's the one who goes down into the underworld? Is it Persephone?
Yeah.
And is she a demigod? She's a half goddess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess she's a Persephone character.
Yes, exactly.
Son of a fairy king. That's Oberon in Midsummer Night's Dream.
Right. And then they
Okay.
say that, well, Blackbeard, he comes out and he says, Neverland is a dream from which you never wake. So now we're talking about dreams again. We're talking about subconscious, and it's going to get even deeper next week when we talk about Great God Pan in the subconscious, and when I do the Rockfin show about this and dream state and the subconscious. And Peter in this movie is a messiah to Neverland. So he is a prince, a demigod, a messiah. He is the one who is going to balance the force again in Neverland, right? When they get rid of old, huge ass man Blackbeard, right? And this movie is so goofy. Like it could have been okay as a kids movie, but the dubbing was really lame. And I don't know, the actor, he's not a bad actor, but his lines and his dubbing, they did him dirty, I think.
I like the older guy. What's his name? Garrett Hedlund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the guy. Remember the guy that he finds in the mine, and the guy's what's funny about that is he's like, "Here's how you get out of your chains. I'll show you how." And then the next scene, he goes, "I'm not your friend. I'm not here to show you how to do anything, and I'm not here to give you any, I'm not here to be your friend.
Yeah.
You want to be friends?" it's
Right.
like, it's like, dude, okay.
His
But I
name
like,
was Hook in the movie.
right, right.
So now Hook is this sort of mentor, like this who's the oh my gosh, who's Harrison Ford in Star Wars?
Han Solo.
He's like that. He's the Han Solo of the movie. He's the cooler, older um person that Pan is mentored by.
He kind of talks like Harrison Ford too.
Yeah, yeah, he
Kind of have
does.
the same voice. Give me back my family.
Yeah,
Get off my plane.
yeah. So when they escape from Blackbeard's mines, and it also has like a Wild West element to it. So it's pirates in space and also cowboys. How did that happen?
Probably they got a 7-year-old to give them an idea for a movie.
Yeah. Because Hook is kind of like a cowboy in Han Solo.
Yeah.
And it turns into this journey to the center of the earth adventure where they're now in Neverland is like some kind of prehistoric jungle, right? And they're looking for the natives. So you've got like Avatar meets Harry Potter meets Wild West Pirates in Space. Is that enough?
Meets Les Mis. There was obviously Les Mis was a big part
Yeah,
of this. That the
sure.
singing, and that was probably Hugh Jackman's idea.
Probably. And the natives are just like over the top multicultural amalgam of like every Mayan native, like what it's very Avatar, right?
It was the Burger King Kids Club.
Oh, totally. It was the Burger King Kids Club. And then their hero of their culture is called a Pan, right? Pan is not the name of a person, it's the title, like Lord or our savior Pan. He's our warrior.
That was the producer's idea to make it different than the
Right.
other movies.
Right.
And also there's a weird like Westworld
Yeah.
element to this. I mean, there's the cowboy thing, but because Hugh Jackman is like he's not the foppish King Charles II. Instead, he's got like a weird like it's almost like a samurai haircut.
Yes, it's like Singapore pirates. Yeah, very Japanese looking hairstyle and not handsome at all. Gruesome almost, like
Yeah.
teeth and scary eyes, right?
Yeah, that was the thing. We were talking about that about his eyes, and that was the one thing. That was like the one thing I took away from this movie was that um that just in terms of film in general, the 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 one thing that every actor wants is the close up. That's like what they demand in their in their contracts, a certain number of close ups
Mm-hmm.
because their whole face is the screen. So they're, they're not only larger than life, but now they're larger
Mm-hmm.
than even that. But it's the eyes that sell the role. So that's why you get a lot of bad actors in film who just look the part because people are willing suspension of disbelief. People are willing to overlook the flaws as long as they can believe what the person's saying in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So like one thing is like, when you can tell when you're looking at an actor and they're trying to remember their lines, they're like seeing the script in their eyes. And I thought, Hugh Jackman is good in this because it did bring out a subtle thing with his character, which is that, that there has to be something driving the bad guy. It can't just be the bad guy and he's there and he's doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like not only hear him say the words, but you have to look in his eyes and believe that like there's something about him that where he knows what Peter is going through. He knows what the orphans are going through. And I thought that was good. It was kind of like, show instead of tell. We can see that he is if he's not one of these guys from his former life, then then there's some sort of pain that he's carrying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I thought he did the best uh acting in that movie for sure.
he's in Prisoners also. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah. So they find this Disney tribe of natives and who worship their hero Pan. And what they are protecting is the fairy kingdom where Peter thinks that his mother lives now. And so here is another dimension within a dimension. So now we're getting like, 5, 6D realms, right? So you have to pass through the mundane world into Neverland, and then Neverland is there's a door to the fairy kingdom, right? So you have these veils of reality being lifted and the different beings that live on these planes of existence. And in this movie, the highest beings are the fairies, right?
Right. So is this just another multiverse?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Um, yeah, dimensions, angelic realms, fairy realms. This is what magic is all based on, contacting beings from these different places, right? Or incarnating them. And Peter is a well, this movie, I'm gonna give you a confession. Like I was like dozing off 3/4 of the way and like woke up at the very end. So you have to tell me what happened after he made it through the fairy kingdom and they were like blasting the fairies with the fire. You have to forgive me. We're moving, so I was like really tired, and I tried to put this on and watch it, but it was not that good.
Look, did did anybody watch this movie and not do that?
That's known as the nap time of the movie. Because you probably did it too, huh? That's why you're
I,
laughing.
I totally did, totally.
Yeah.
Um, no, but just the point, I guess, is that especially with the multiverse thing, I guess it's different than that because the multiverse always in Marvel movies always functions as like a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the bad thing happened in the world. We can just go to the multiverse and then we'll sort it out by doing it there
Mm-hmm.
and like having some sort of synthesis of the worlds. But in this, the multiverse dream world is what they have to make their way through. Like it's surrealistic. There's also a lot of like inversion and like upside down walking and
Mm.
sort of nonsense world in this. And
Just like
and
Alice in Wonderland too, with falling and finding equilibrium, and then the other direction is up and stuff like that, right?
yeah, in fact, one of the big things in Alice in Wonderland is the hookah smoking caterpillar sitting on the mushroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, trippy, man. Um, and that is in the book. There's a scene where like Captain Hook is talking to Smee or whatever his right hand man, and he's sitting on a mushroom, and then the mushroom starts to heat up, and he's like, "Well, what is this?" And then it's like, well, obviously, Lost Boys use mushrooms as caps for their chimneys, so they live in they have an underground world,
Uh-huh.
and so then we have to like go from the dream world of the island world outside of reality, even further into the underground world, and the mushroom hides the smoke reality from Hook. And then there's a whole sequence where Peter has to fit the kids to the trees, which is really weird. Like most people forget about this scene, which is
Mm.
that it says like, okay, when you go to a tailor and you got to like fit the clothes to you, well, it's the
Mm-hmm.
opposite. Like every kid fits a tree. So you have to find exactly the right size tree. And then when the kid like gets in the tree and then they can like wriggle down. That's how they get in the tunnel down into the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
So like when they come up, they like wriggle up on the inside of a tree,
Mm-hmm.
which is it was just very, very odd.
Does this sound like programming talk, psychology, like deeper and deeper hypnotism stuff, or not?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yes, yes, and the like when you were describing Pan, I was thinking like this is a like if this is a dream state, it's hellish. Like this is awful
Yeah.
to get lost in this world, and then you have in that world, and then you have to make your way back
And
into reality.
yeah, children are your parents, and the only adults are like horrible pirates trying to kill you. And it sounds like a nightmare, definitely.
It also starts to be the Monarch always turns into like the most dangerous game.
Hmm.
Right. So it's the Manchurian candidate. You have to go and you're going to be one of the lost boys and you have to, take out so and so
Hmm.
in order to not be disappeared. And then you can find your home and then you can make your way back. And then when you get here, by the way, you won't remember anything that happened.
Right. Yeah. I I think we're pretty much nailing it tonight on these analyses. They're both based and lit. Right?
I
They're the
mean,
basest and the littest.
like this honestly, this is the type of text where um just with the MK Ultra stuff, reading like I don't know John Mark, just all these people that talk about programming, and like when you listen to people like Kathy O'Brien and stuff talk about this, there are elements of it where you go, or Montauk Project, like this is one of the key things in it is the programming, and I did that with Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye is so odd to me that it strikes me as just like there's another language encoded in the language.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing with Wizard of Oz, and it's the same thing with this. What was the trifecta that you pointed out? Wizard of
Alice in
Oz.
Wonderland, Peter Pan,
Yeah,
Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
right. Because they go beyond just the kids stuff. I mean, on the surface, this is a great story for kids. Like if I'm a little boy and I, read this book or I hear the story, it's cool for me because it's like, oh, I can fly. I have a tribe. I get to do whatever I want. I get to play war. Even the stuff about like, oh, you can die in the fights with the other people. It's like, well, little kids play war all the time and they die.
Hmm.
You know, um, uh, I, rem- I remember. I'll tell one story. In preschool, we had like our little war gangs, and there was this kid, and he said, "Can I play?" And my friend Brad said, you can't play." And the kid said, "Let me play." And he said, "Okay, you can be Mister Nobody."
Ooh.
Yeah, it was terrible. So anyway, this kid ended up being the first like person who got killed in the war, like on the playset. And I remember going over to him and going like, "Nope, he's not breathing." And my friend Brad goes, "Let's check and see if he's really dead." And grabbed this kid's tongue and pulled it like this far out of his mouth. He was like, "Yeah, he's definitely gone. All right, we got to go kill the bad guys in the woods." But like that's what little kids do.
Yeah.
And so Peter Pan is cool like that. But when you get beyond that, because it's a complex book, the diction in the book is far beyond little kids reading.
Mm-hmm.
They even mention ORGY in the book a number of times.
What?
Yes, that word is. See if I can find the reference here. It's mentioned specifically that I'm not going to be able to find it now. Oh, here it is. Here's one. This is page 67 in the book. It says, after a time, he fell asleep, and some unsteady fairies had to climb over him on their way home from an ORGY. Any of the other boys obstructing the fairy path at night, they would have mischiefed, but they just tweaked Peter's nose and passed on. What a weird paragraph.
So he's talking about fairy ORGYs in a kid's book, and you just said something that made me think like, so this is something that an adult has to read to a child, not that they could just pick up and absorb on their own, right?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure.
So it's a
Like,
GROOMING script.
I mean, even the look on the page of the prose, there's too much. There's too much. Like there's too much verbiage on the page for kids. It's a
Yeah.
150-page book. I mean, now
Isn't it
probably
so
teenagers
funny?
couldn't even read this.
The kind of things that come out of this time period, people feel like they're wholesome just because they were from the old times. They can't have any type of nefarious stuff going on back then because everybody was wearing frilly wigs and right.
Right. In a way, I guess it's kind of like, when boomers love the boomers, we love the boomers.
Because
Um,
Victorians were so like chaste and uh so it has this veneer, but so the creepers had to go underground,
mhm.
have their creep clubs and their codes and their stories and their predatory techniques. And what better way than through, media, plays, books, and fairy tales?
Or they're just straight up adoptions, like of
Right.
random
Oh
families in a
yeah,
park.
you could, yeah, just pick one from the park and lure him away with your fairy stories.
But it's like when boomers are like, the music now is so bad, is so, all they talk about is, sex and, all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but you're on film like for 3 days getting naked in a mud pit, like on acid.
Oh, from
That
Woodstock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they celebrate. I mean, that's their thing. So in a way, it's we always look at the past with these kind of, uh rose colored glasses, I guess. But like you said, I mean, it's right there. It's right there in the book.
Mm-hmm. So in the movie Pan, the 2015 huge ass man movie, he gets the key to fairyland. He saves Neverland. He's the Messiah, Pan. And the crystals have to do with immortality. And his mother, even though he finds out she is dead, she's still alive through the collective unconscious, I would say, of the fairies merging together and piecing together so he can talk to his mom again.
Yeah,
Her data
it,
is saved in the fairyland.
which is like which is kind of what, like, that's a Stranger Things sort of event, right? Remember, 11 is looking for her mom, and her mom is lost in like, she's catatonic in the real world, but she's alive in the blackened psychic world or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kept alive because, remember, in season 2, she meets with the other, um, you know, numbers or whatever, and they like are able to help her, reach her mother.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different than in the other versions of Peter Pan, because like in that one, just the parents are just doing their normal thing, and they're going to keep the window open. In this one, he's just literally an orphan, and they, like you said, they just like lift him straight out of the orphanage. That's a
Yeah.
weird scene.
Yeah. And then after he is crowned the prince of this place, the Crystal Kingdom, really. So then I was like, what does this have to do with high technology? Because that's what crystals are used for, like quartz and holding memory and powering, chips. And so you've got your mining for technology in the beginning, and then you're using your crystal underground technology at the end. He's the prince. And the Hook character gets the tribal girl. I can't remember. I think that no, and then he comes back and he saves the orphans from the mundane world. And he is, instead of being kidnapped, the orphans go willingly to serve him, right? They're
Of course, yeah,
exuberant to be
yeah,
being taken away to a place where they're neither dead or alive.
yeah. So, oh, that part I forgot. That part reminded me of Brave New World, right, where they go and meet John. Is it John Savage? When they go into the outer world, and it's everyone is free from the system,
Uh-huh.
right? But then when they go back, everyone walks willingly into their slavery, I suppose.
Mm.
Probably a stretch, but in spirit, it's kind of the same.
It's a peculiar movie, but it fits right in the theme of what we're talking about. And now we are going on 2 hours, so I think maybe we should talk about Hook next time. Hook, because I know that's going to be so funny, and I think I want to watch it again before next time, because that's one of those that I've seen a million times. Like we had a collection of um, movies that you can record, like pirated movies, like the VHSs that have 3 movies each on them. And we had about 10 of those. So I've seen like Hook so many times that I could probably quote it still, but I want to rewatch it because I know you're gonna have some funny takes on it, and I think you might want to read this before next time.
Yep.
Um, Crazy stuff. Look, I mean, look at all of these. Like, it's it's just a little novella, maybe like 2 hours. You could read it, not very long, but it's super packed with esoteric crap in it. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do Pan's Labyrinth, which is pretty much on theme for all of the child abuse and stuff we've been talking about tonight. So I want to thank you. We had so much fun, and tell everybody where you can be found.
Yes, everybody watching this, please go to my channel, A Based Lit Analyzer, over on YouTube. Please hit that sub button. This has been a lot of fun. We did a for sure a part 1 deep dive, and
I don't know anyone who's done a better Peter Pan analysis than this one. What do you think?
I think we, and we're not even finished because there's a
Right.
lot more, because I didn't even get to, we're going to get to the Mackin book. I'm going to talk about Euripides in a little more detail with the Bacchae. We're going to talk about the Bacchic rituals, and I didn't even get to some of the other weird literary elements like the Sylvia Plath, Ted Hughes,
Oh yeah, I remember you
Ouija
said that.
board contact of this demon entity called Pan, the Baphomet stuff with Pan's Labyrinth. So look forward to that one. Now, it's going to be a good one, folks. Please.
Yes.
And also, one more thing. Let me do a shameless plug here. Check me out tomorrow. I'll be on Jim Bob's channel. We're going to be doing a deep dive into Donnie Darko, and actually, the Donnie Darko is how I discovered Jay in like 2010. The essay was 2010, and the analysis, the YouTube analysis was like 2010, 2012, or something like that. So it's one of y'all's in your arena, one of your first. So we're going to be going back into Donnie Darko and doing some deep discussion of that over on Jim Bob's channel. So this has been a lot of fun. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, nice. Everyone go check out his channel. He's definitely part of our squad now, and we're gonna have fun next week. Thanks for watching.
Peace.